Welcome to the Blackest Inktober. We're on to day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the keyword for today is swing. And I'm not going to be drawing orgies of middle-aged married people. What I've done here is just, I haven't set up any golden ratio or anything like that. I've only set up a very basic square, not even used a ruler, and on that square I will try to start as good as I can. Just now what I'm doing is placing my hand in the perfect angle for making a straight line. We'll do two of them, and they're almost straight. I'm guessing this one curves a little, and it can curve a little, and later in the drawing you'll see what these straight lines are supposed to be, I hope. But right now, that's not important. Now the sun is starting to shine straight in at the drawing. We might have to pull the blinds down. Just get this as straight as it can. And that will be sort of the basis of the drawing. Now, swing, when I think about my bipolar condition, or my bipolar diagnosis, I don't know how to pronounce words. Anyhow, when I think about being what's called bipolar and the word swing, the link is kind of obvious. I think I actually need to pull down the blinds right now because the sun is going straight to the paper and I can't see shit. Like this. Excellent. Okay, so when I think of bipolar and the word swing, the link is pretty obvious, as I said. So the bipolar condition, as I understand it, is the swinging between regular moods. So the one of the moods is the kind of normal everyday mood, and then you have the lows, which are the depressions, and then you have the highs, which are the manic or hypomanic periods. Now my kind of the bipolar diagnosis I have had thrown after me is bipolar type 2. So my high periods are what you would call a hypomanic condition, which sounds more extreme than manic, but is actually less extreme. So that means that I can get very elated for long periods, of a week or two, or even more, some seldom times. But I don't get psychotic. I don't lose track with reality. So, however high I am, I'm still sort of somehow down on earth. My mind might be a bit lofty, but I'm not insane. And I do get some periods where my ego is even bigger than usual. And those periods are, great for making art and making deadlines. Oh, the deadlines I can hit when I'm in a hypomanic period. But I do lose some touch with reality in some sense. So it's not all hugs and roses. It can be tough, and I can get into these situations where I'm doing a lot of stuff without thinking about it, and especially in social situations and with colleagues and with family and stuff, I can sort of come out very wrong when I'm in my high periods. Then my regular periods, which should be more common, but actually for me they're not all that common. Usually I'm either kind of depressed or I'm kind of high, and so it's not so much like the Townes Van Sant album, high, low and in between. It's high and low and very little in between. And even in my high periods, I would say, I have a tinge of depression. So my depression started, I guess, when I was 12 years old is the first time I remember having a true depression, not just being sad, but being really down. And about a year later, or 2 years later, I think, 2 years later, I remember thinking back and noticing that I had been depressive and I wouldn't say suicidal, but thinking about suicide for every day for the last year. And I was 14. And since that time, I've been in this constant state of some sort of depression and some sort of suicidal thinking or impulse. And that's true even for my high periods, when I'm very high up there and I'm really just thriving. I still have this tinge of depression and suicidal thought underneath it. So they are always mixing. That's the point I want to make. Now, my depressive periods are, for me, the most common periods, and they sort of divide into two different types of depressive periods. One is the what would be categorized as a light depression, where I'm struggling, but I'm very functional. I can manage my regular life, but I'm just not that happy about it. And those periods are distinct from my more regular periods, or middle periods, and they are long, and yeah, that kind of light depression is what I've grown accustomed to as my normal daily self. And getting up in the morning can be hard, but it's doable, and I just I'm functional. Then I have this period that started a few weeks ago, which is when I go down to sort of a moderate depression, which means I'm barely functional. Getting out of bed is really hard, and a lot of the day I don't do much at all. I can just sit staring at things, or I can have to lie down in bed, and when dealing with my family and my kids, when I'm in a moderate depression, the aggression level gets a lot higher. So I really have to be very careful not to become a really poor father. So the moderate depressions are really hard. And it sounds moderate, but it doesn't feel moderate. And those moderate depressions, they come quite regularly. So I know that I will, when summer begins, I will enter my hardest and longest depressive period. That happens every time. And I know that I will have a high period, sometimes bordering on hypomanic period in the early autumn, and that I will fall down usually around October for another moderate depressive period, which will not be as hard and as long as the one in the summer. Then a couple of times during winter I will fall down again, and a couple of times during spring I might have a higher period for a week or perhaps two. And so that is my swinging between the bipolar moods, I guess. And there has been a book written about bipolar condition and the artist or the creative mind, which is called something like, it's not Painting with Fire, because that's the Frank Frazetta biography. It's not Voices of Fire. It's something with fire, not Playing with Fire. I will try to link to it in when I put up the YouTube video of this. And it's been a while since I read that book, but it seemed pretty well grounded and scientific, and my understanding of it is basically that there seems to be a link between the experience of having a life we're swinging up and down between these different states, and the ability to create interesting stuff, which is basically your thoughts swinging from this to that direction. And everyone swings in moods, but what exemplifies something as bipolar is when the degree with which you are swinging is so severe that it actually makes you less functional. And so it's not that I'm happy one week and sad one week, it's that I'm destructive in my happiness or sadness at a regular interval and at some length. But in that swinging back and forth between these different states, I tend to find some creative value. So, for instance, in my high periods, I can get a lot of work done, but I'm not particularly discerning about it. So I can produce a lot of work, and some of it will be good, but some of it might be bad. That's just the way it is. Now, in my low periods, I'm barely able to create work. And if I'm able to create work, I'm seldom able to decide what work I can create. I just have to follow my follow the ideas that seem to drive their way through the sludge of the depression. But what's really good about the depressions is that I get hypercritical of my own work, and I see all the faults in the work very clearly. And you might say, yeah, but that's just because you're depressed, which is true, but still the faults I see when I'm hypercritical, when I'm too critical, are real. So having those periods where I so clearly see my lack of ability and so severely feel the areas where I need to progress means that I am able, when I'm out of the depression, to attack those very real faults and try to make them better. So I can use the depressive periods as a tool to improve myself. And quite often, for instance, when I've been working on some long projects like like Pigman's Model, my H.P. Lovecraft adaptation, which I worked for 3.5 years, so I had some major depressive periods really ruin a lot for that work. And I had some long breaks in between working on it. And when I came out of those long depressive breaks, I often redid huge parts of the comic and made it a whole lot better. Not just a little bit better, but it went from, something which was a good idea and became something I think of as a sort of a monumental work in my career so far. And honestly, I think it's one of the better Lovecraft adaptations in any media, and one of the reasons why it became good is because it was halted by these depressive periods that in the end helped improve it. And it's not fun to work on a single book for 3.5 years while being depressed and while hating your work, but it is really fun to have completed such a monumental task. And be able to see that, I can see faults, I can see improvements when I look at it today, but I also can see that, those decisions I made after the depressive periods made the work into, quite frankly, a great work. And I don't like using the word great about my own work, but it's pretty great. And that bipolar swinging between these different states, the heightened state and the lowered state and the medium regular state, also brings, I think, often an increased empathy with people in other states than yourself. Because you know what it's like to be so full of yourself that no one can stop you from doing stupid shit. And you know what it's like to be so miserable that you can't even start to do stupid shit. So I do think there is an energy and a critical sense and an empathy that actually helps the artistic or the creative process in the bipolar condition. That doesn't mean I think that all bipolar people are artists, or that you should be bipolar to be an artist, or that even I would recommend artists becoming bipolar. If you could buy a bipolar pill, I would say don't take it. But there is a link, and it's interesting, and you know it's the good and the bad and the ugly. And what I'm drawing here is sort of my illustration of just that. It is the fires of Muspelheim and the ice of Niflheim and the Ginnungagap in between from Norse mythology. So the endless void between the world of fire and the world of ice. And the mist and smoke between. And then I thought I'd take this rather somber image from mythology, and I'll put something silly in the middle, like someone, and it needs to be quite clear, so I'll draw him uncharacteristically large. If I had a larger canvas to work on, larger paper, I would definitely draw him a lot smaller compared to the Ginnungagap. But I'll put this little figure with his feet down, sitting on a swing, in the middle of Ginnungagap. And that's my Blackest Inktober for today. And I think I'll clear up a bit here, like this. That's beautiful. This line is beautiful, and like this. And I'll no this. This is actually good, like this, and then I'll just write the number. It's number 09, and it's called Swing. And I'm sorry if you expected mature married couples copulating in a group, but I'd rather draw Ginnungagap and sort of illustrate the bipolar process of swinging between the ice and the fire and the mist in between. Thank you for watching this Blackest Inktober. See you tomorrow.